What if the reason your mind feels heavy is not because life is cruel, but because you've been taught to care about things that don't deserve your energy? You scroll, you listen, you react, and suddenly every opinion, every slight, every passing storm feels like it belongs to you. But what if you could let it go? The Stoics believed most of our suffering comes not from events themselves, but from our refusal to release them. Imagine walking through the noise of the world untouched, like a calm stone in the middle of a rushing river. That's what they mastered, and it's what you can learn too. The first principle is learning to distinguish between what is within your control and what is not. Epictetus said, "Some things are in our control and others not." This is where all freedom begins. Most of the weight we carry comes from trying to bend the world to our will, making people like us, forcing outcomes, wishing the weather, the market, or even fate itself would listen to us. But none of these things ever belong to us. What belongs to us are our choices, our actions, our judgments. That is the narrow ground where we truly stand. If someone insults you, their words are beyond your command. But how you choose to see them, whether you let their poison drip into your mind, that is yours. When you accept this division, you find an unexpected peace. You no longer waste strength chasing after shadows or raging at storms. You begin to act only where you can act, and let go where you cannot. Think of a sailor. He cannot control the wind or the sea, but he can steer his ship. If he fights the wind, he drowns. If he works with it, he arrives. The art of not caring is not about coldness, it is about clarity. It is knowing where your power ends and where surrender begins. The second principle is to see life as temporary and fleeting. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that everything we hold on to will soon fade. The people we love, the possessions we prize, even our own bodies. Worrying over insults, losses, or slights makes little sense when we place them against the backdrop of eternity. Imagine standing in a great desert, holding a handful of sand. Each grain is a moment, and soon it slips away no matter how tightly you clutch it. This is how life is. When you accept impermanence, you no longer grip every offense or disappointment as if it defines you. You begin to loosen your hold. Think of how often you have obsessed over something, what someone said, what someone did, only to look back months later and realize it no longer matters. That is the lesson of time. Nothing lasts, not even our suffering. If it will not matter tomorrow, why let it poison today? Letting go is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the choice to invest your limited time and energy in what truly endures, virtue, courage, kindness, rather than wasting it on what will soon be dust. To master the art of not caring, we must first see how little in this life is permanent. The third principle is to separate what is in your control from what is not. Epictetus, the freed slave turned philosopher, built his entire teaching around this single truth. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. The trouble comes when we confuse the two. We exhaust ourselves trying to change what belongs to others, their choices, their thoughts, their judgments, while neglecting the one domain where we hold real power, our own mind. Think about how much worry is born from this confusion. We fret about whether others approve of us, whether events will unfold as we wish, whether the world will bend to our desires. But none of this is ours to command. What belongs to us is limited but sufficient: our reason, our attitude, our response. When insulted, we cannot control the words that leave another's mouth, but we can choose whether to let them wound us. When faced with failure, we cannot control the outcome, but we can control whether we rise again with steadiness or collapse in despair. The art of not caring is not apathy. It is clarity. It is knowing that no amount of fear or stress can move what is outside our power. Freedom begins when we stop chasing what cannot be held and turn our strength toward what can. The fourth principle is to remember the brevity of life. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that he was a man of flesh and breath, destined to return to dust. This is not a call to despair, but a call to perspective. How many of our worries seem large only because we forget how little time we have? A passing insult, a lost opportunity, the gossip of others, none of it carries weight when viewed against the span of eternity. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast ocean and dropping a single pebble into it. That pebble is your worry. The ocean is time itself. When you see life in this light, it becomes easier to let go of small anxieties. You begin to ask, is this worth spending what remains of my limited days? Should I sacrifice peace of mind for something that will vanish as quickly as morning dew? Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short life, but that we waste much of it." To master the art of not caring, we must first recognize what truly matters, because time strips away illusions. The remembrance of mortality is not morbid, it is liberating. It urges us to release the grip of trivial concerns and hold tightly only to what is essential: virtue, character, and the present moment. The fifth principle is to understand control and acceptance. The Stoics drew a clear line between what belongs to us and what does not. Our thoughts, choices, and actions, these are within our command. The weather, the opinions of others, the outcome of fortune, these are beyond our reach. Yet most of our worries grow out of trying to control what we cannot. Imagine gripping sand tightly in your hand. The harder you try to hold it, the more it slips away. So it is with life. When you attempt to manage the uncontrollable, you only exhaust yourself and lose your calm. Epictetus taught, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." To stop caring about the wrong things, you must stop reaching for what does not belong to you. Accept reality as it comes. The storm will blow whether you wish it or not. The words of critics will spill whether you resist or not. What remains yours is how you respond. When you focus your energy on what you can guide, your mind, your virtue, your choices, you find peace. It is not apathy, but clarity. It is the strength to say, "I will not fight the tide, but I will steer my ship." The sixth principle is to embrace impermanence. Nothing in life is fixed, not even the things we hold most dear. The Stoics reminded themselves daily that all is passing: wealth, fame, beauty, power, even life itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything's destiny is to change, to be transformed, to perish, so that new things can be born." Worry often grows from clinging too tightly to what cannot last. We fear losing people, possessions, or opportunities, as though we could freeze time with our hands. But imagine holding a flower. You can crush it by trying to keep it forever, or you can admire its beauty while it lasts. Letting go is not coldness, it is wisdom. By accepting impermanence, you learn to enjoy the present without being consumed by anxiety about the future. The job you have now, the friendships around you, even the struggles you face, they are all temporary. This truth frees you from grasping and complaining. You see life as a river, always moving. To resist its flow is to drown in worry. To accept its course is to glide with peace. When you remind yourself that nothing is permanent, you stop demanding that the world remain still, and you begin to live fully in the moment that is already here. The seventh principle is to focus on virtue as the highest good. For the Stoics, nothing outside of your character truly matters. Wealth, reputation, or recognition may rise and fall, but who you are inside remains your compass. Worry takes hold when you place your worth in what others think or in what fortune gives. If you seek validation from the crowd, you will always be restless because their opinions are beyond your control and never consistent. But if you root your peace in virtue, living with honesty, courage, self-discipline, and justice, no external storm can uproot you. Seneca wrote that a wise person is content with themselves because they measure success by the standard of their own integrity, not by applause or blame. Ask yourself, when I lie awake worrying, is it because I fear failing in virtue? Or is it because I'm chasing approval or outcomes that may never come? The Stoics would say, worry is wasted unless it drives you toward becoming a better human being. All else is noise. When you choose virtue above all else, you gain a shield. You may lose money, friends, or status, but you cannot lose the worth of your own soul. This principle strips away endless anxieties because it reminds you that the only true loss is the loss of your integrity, and that is always within your power to protect. The eighth principle is the acceptance of impermanence. Everything in life changes, shifts, and eventually ends. Worry often comes from the illusion that what we have must last forever, or that what we fear will never pass. But Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that life is nothing more than a flowing river, every moment carried away into the past, every breath a reminder of change. When you cling too tightly to what must eventually slip away, you suffer twice, once in the holding and again in the losing. The Stoics advised a different approach, to greet impermanence not as an enemy, but as a teacher. When you accept that nothing lasts forever, you learn to appreciate things more deeply while they are here, instead of worrying about when they will go. A flower is not less beautiful because it fades, it is beautiful because it does. Relationships, fortunes, even your own body, they are all subject to time. Why waste your peace fighting what no human has ever conquered? Worry dissolves when you embrace this truth. Instead of fearing endings, you can prepare your mind for them, living with gratitude in the present moment. As Epictetus said, never say about anything, I have lost it, but instead, I have returned it. To see life as borrowed rather than owned turns worry into wisdom. You no longer grasp at permanence, but calmly release things as they pass, knowing this is the natural order of the universe. In letting go of permanence, you also let go of much of your anxiety. The ninth principle is to master the discipline of perception. Worry often begins not with reality, but with the way we choose to interpret reality. A single event can be seen as a disaster or as a challenge, depending on the lens you hold up to it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This teaching cuts worry at its root. If the mind is the one assigning meaning, then the mind also holds the power to change that meaning. For example, a missed opportunity could be seen as proof of failure, or it could be viewed as a redirection towards something better suited. An insult might be taken as a deep wound, or it can be shrugged off as noise unworthy of attention. The facts of life are neutral, but our judgments color them with fear, anger, or calm. By practicing the art of perception, you give yourself room to breathe instead of tightening into worry. It is like standing on a hill while others rush around in panic. The view is higher, wider, less clouded by emotion. Stoicism does not ask you to deny reality, but to see it more clearly. You cannot always change events, but you can always change the story you tell yourself about them. And often, when you rewrite that story, worry dissolves into clarity. This is the discipline that frees the mind from its own chains. The 10th principle is to live with detachment from outcomes. Much of our worry arises because we grip too tightly to how things must unfold. We imagine that success, love, recognition or safety must come in a certain form at a certain time. When reality resists that image, anxiety fills the gap. The Stoics advise the opposite approach. Act with care, but release your demand for a specific result. Epictetus taught that freedom begins the moment you stop craving for events to follow your will. This does not mean indifference or laziness. It means doing your duty, giving your best effort, and then standing firm regardless of the outcome. Think of an archer. His responsibility is to draw the bow with skill and release the arrow with focus. Whether the arrow hits the target, however, depends on many factors beyond his control: the wind, the condition of the bow, even the movement of the target. To worry about those things is to waste strength. Life is the same. You can prepare, plan, and act wisely, but the final result is not yours to own. When you detach from outcomes, you release yourself from the endless cycle of hoping and fearing. You remain steady, whether praised or ignored, whether you win or lose. That steadiness is a kind of unshakable peace. By letting go, you don't lose control, you gain freedom. You stop being a slave to chance and become a master of your own mind. This is the essence of Stoic calm: to care deeply about what is in your hands and to care lightly about what is not. The 11th principle is to remember the brevity of life. Much of our worry grows large only because we imagine endless time stretching before us, as if we will live forever, to wrestle with these small anxieties. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that life is short, and soon he would be gone, like all who came before him. This reflection was not meant to depress him, but to sharpen his focus. When you see how quickly the days pass, how brief your time is, the weight of worry begins to fall away. Why spend your limited hours in endless rumination when each moment can be used for clarity, kindness, and strength? Think of how small your present fear will seem in 10 years or even tomorrow. Many of the things that trouble you now will fade to nothing. Death is not a shadow to fear, but a teacher that whispers, "Do not waste time." Seneca said that it is not that we have too little time, but that we waste much of it. Every minute spent in fruitless worry is a minute lost from living with reason and calm. To master this principle is to live in full awareness of your mortality without despair. It is to let that awareness lighten your burdens, not add to them. For when you know your time is limited, your energy turns toward what is truly worth your care, and what is not quickly dissolves into the background. In this way, the shortness of life becomes a source of freedom rather than fear. The 12th principle is to hold firm to the idea that your worth does not depend on the opinion of others. Much of our inner turmoil comes from worrying about how people see us, whether they approve, whether they admire or criticize. This is a trap that can consume your peace because you have no control over the shifting winds of other people's judgments. Marcus Aurelius wrote that it is foolish to let your happiness rest in the hands of another, for they may not even know what is good for themselves. Instead, he urged that you ground yourself in your own reasoned judgment, in the quiet approval of your own conscience. Imagine standing on solid ground while others walk on sand. Their voices may rise, but they cannot pull you from your footing if you remain steady. Ask yourself, whose opinion truly matters, and why? If you live in alignment with virtue, with honesty, courage, and self-control, then you already hold the highest approval possible, your own. The noise of criticism fades when you realize it has no power unless you grant it. Epictetus taught that if someone speaks ill of you, remember they are only speaking from their perspective. You can choose to be disturbed or not. To master this principle is to find freedom from the chains of seeking constant validation. When you let go of the need to be seen a certain way, you begin to live simply, quietly, with strength that no one can take away. In this way, the judgments of others lose their sting, and your life becomes lighter, calmer, and firmly your own. The 13th principle is to practice detachment from outcomes. We often carry unnecessary suffering because we cling tightly to how we want things to turn out. We imagine a future, attach our happiness to it, and when life unfolds differently, we feel crushed. The Stoics remind us that outcomes are never fully in our control. We can plan, act wisely, and prepare with care, but the result belongs to a mixture of chance, circumstance, and the actions of others. Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." This does not mean indifference in the lazy sense, but rather a steady heart that is not broken by what it cannot command. Picture planting a seed. You can water it, give it sunlight, care for the soil, yet you cannot dictate the weather nor guarantee its growth. If you focus on what you can control, the planting, the tending, your peace remains intact no matter what comes. Detachment is not about coldness, but clarity. You love, you strive, you care, but you do not let the weight of an uncertain future steal today's calm. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Never let the future disturb you." You will meet it, if you have to, with the same reason you use today. To master this principle is to walk lightly, carrying only what is yours to carry. When you release your grip on results, you find freedom from fear, disappointment, and constant worry. You learn to let life flow, to meet each moment with equanimity, and to trust yourself to endure whatever may come. This is the art of letting go, and in it lies true strength. If this message has given you even a little more peace, then carry it with you today. And when you're ready, watch the next video where we'll go even deeper into the wisdom of Stoicism.